Hello everyone and welcome back to the Yellow Submarine, your #1 dedicated Beatles channel. Today, we're going to be talking about a random conspiracy theory that's been circulating the internet lately. It all started when someone found out that in 1967, Paul McCartney died in an accident involving a car crash. There are also some other things like people saying they've met him before or seen pictures where it looks like it's not really him, but someone else acting as if he were Paul McCartney. Numerous people have argued for decades that the real Paul McCartney died in a vehicle accident in 1966 and was replaced by a doppelganger. The rumor first surfaced in 1967 but gained traction once it was published on American college campuses in late 1969. The hypothesis was based on imagined hints contained in Beatles songs and album covers, according to believers. Hints quickly spread throughout the world and within a few weeks it had become a worldwide sensation. Remove the Beatles' White Album from its album case, turn on your turntable, play Revolution 9 backward, which is the second to last track. Turn me on, dead man. A strange voice should be heard groaning. This was enough to persuade Beatles fans in 1969 that Paul was no longer alive. The strange rumor quickly gained traction that year. Paul McCartney died in a car accident in 1966 according to the Paul is dead hypotheses. John Lennon, George Harrison and Ringo Starr, the other Beatles, concluded that the performance had to go on. As a result, they sought the help of a body duplicate. People that believe in this theory suspect, however, that the remaining Beatles' guilt finally weighed hard on them, and they began to leave hints about Paul's death in their songs, such as the White Album's concealed "Turn Me On Dead Guy." So where did this rumor originate? And what proof is there to back that up? An odd sidebar was published in the Beatles monthly book, the band's official fan magazine, in February 1967. The magazine said, "Stories about the Beatles are continually floating about. A story circulated in London that Paul McCartney had died in a car accident on the M1 highway, but of course it wasn't true in the least." However, there was a grain of truth in this theory. McCartney suffered a damaged tooth after crashing his motorbike in December 1965. In January 1967, McCartney's vehicle was involved in a car accident on the M1 motorway. However, the rumor flopped in the beginning because it appeared to be so easy to debunk. McCartney made an appearance in public looking vibrant. In May 1967, the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. In 1969, a college student in Michigan successfully resurrected the Paul is dead theory. Tom Zarsky spoke on WKNR's DJ Russ Gibbs' radio show on October the 12th to address the Paul is dead hypothesis. He recommended that Gibb play the beginning from the Beatles' White Album track Revolution 9. Audiences around the country heard what looked to be a man's voice saying, "Turn me on, dead guy," as they listened to the radio show by Gibb. Ever since, the entire thing just erupted. The phones were constantly ringing, people were phoning, each with their own set of hints. It was endless. The reverse track served as a spark, igniting a worldwide Paul McCartney conspiracy. According to the Paul is dead hypothesis, Paul McCartney stomped out of a recording session. He got into his car and sped out into the night because he was angry with the band. McCartney was murdered and beheaded in a horrible car accident at some point. However, this placed the other Beatles members in a dilemma. By 1966, the Beatles had received critical praise for their albums Rubber Soul and Revolver. They played in front of 55,000 people at Shea Stadium, the Beatles were on the rise, and they weren't going to let Paul's death get in their way. According to one theory, Lennon, Harrison and Ringo agreed to continue performing without McCartney. They also decided to keep his death a secret from the public. As a result, the remaining Beatles recruited William Campbell, also known as Billy Shears, who looked so much like Paul McCartney. Campbell, fortunately, not only had a strong semblance to McCartney, but he could also sing and compose songs like him. The other Beatles, on the other hand, felt bad about replacing McCartney and never mourned his death. As a result, they began to provide hints in their album artwork and songs. Beatles fans connected to numerous additional signs regarding Paul McCartney's death from the band's record, in addition to hints revealed in Revolution 9 from the White Album. Strawberry Fields Forever, for example, has a reverse message that appears to say, "I buried Paul." And there's another reverse hint in I'm So Tired, which states, "Paul is dead. I'm missing him. I'm missing him. I'm missing him." Plus, the Beatles had just released Abbey Road a few weeks before the Paul is dead rumor became viral, so fans had plenty of new material to go through. Believers in the hypothesis were obsessed with the cover of the Abbey Road album. The picture, they stated, resembled a funeral march. The priest was represented by Lennon, who was dressed in white. In black, Starr played an undertaker, while Harrison, dressed entirely in denim, resembled a gravedigger, and McCartney, who was supposed to symbolize his death by being out of step with the others, not wearing shoes, and having his eyes closed. Fans did not stop at Abbey Road either. The creation of another character, Billy Shears, in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band appeared to scream conspiracy theory. Believers point out that the cutout images on the album cover depict mourners at a funeral. McCartney is holding a dark instrument, whilst the others are holding brass instruments symbolizing his death. Could the yellow hyacinths shaped like a left-handed bass guitar, McCartney's instrument, be a reference to the way the other Beatles buried him? This is one of the questions fans of the conspiracy theory threw at the remaining members of the Beatles. Fans listened to tunes backward in search of new hints. They hung record covers in front of the mirror. There appeared to be signs all over the place. But that wasn't a joke for the Beatles' publicity staff. On the other hand, the Paul is dead rumors boosted the band's profile. Even though they did not need it, the Beatles had 2 albums. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Magical Mystery Tour re-entered the Billboard list after a 9-month absence. It was, however, a nuisance. In 1969, the Beatles disbanded and were venturing out on their own. John Lennon later released Cold Turkey, and McCartney was planning to release his self-titled debut in April. They wanted attention for their work, not a rebirth of interest in their previous albums. The rumor had persisted despite the Beatles' denials. Wired magazine's Italian edition published a story about the Paul McCartney conspiracy idea in 2009. Their report included a study by 2 forensic experts who compared the dimensions of McCartney's skull before and after the car accident using computer technology. Ironically, the duo took on the task of proving that Paul is dead was a ruse using scientific data. They stated, however, that McCartney's face did seem different. They drew attention to McCartney's nose, ears and lips, ever since people started to scrutinize Paul McCartney's features closely every time he stepped out in public. Despite McCartney's repeated denials, and even though he had a string of hit albums as a solo artist, death rumors about him continue. Nonetheless, he seemed to have handled everything with ease. Paul is Live, McCartney's 1993 album, was even named Paul is Live. While all of the Paul McCartney lookalike hypotheses have him dying in an automobile, the cause of death differs. One idea is that he committed suicide, which is referred to by John Lennon in the song A Day in the Life. According to reports, the British government may have forced the other Beatles to conceal Paul's death and replace him with a similar musician named Billy Campbell. You might wonder why the government would put pressure on John, George and Ringo to keep quiet about their bandmate's death. Some argue that the Beatles' extraordinary global success was a financial and cultural boon for England, and that the government didn't want it to end too soon. Others speculate that the authorities were concerned that the word of Paul's death might lead to suicides among his millions of adolescent and preteen followers throughout the world. Paul McCartney's brother, Mike, also helped fuel the rumor about Paul's death. Mike, Paul's brother, was touring the United States with his comedy group The Scaffold at the time. He went on a TV show expecting to sing, but instead was forced to go through a 10-minute lecture explaining why his brother was in fact dead by a Paul is dead specialist. Mike initially refuted the claims, saying that the evidence provided is not sufficient to prove that Paul is dead. However, when asked by the interviewer the last time he saw his brother, he replied, "At his funeral, I think." Rumours died down after Life magazine published an interview with McCartney, who had been isolated with his family in Scotland in November 1969. McCartney, his wife Linda, and their 2 daughters travelled to Scotland to spend time at his farm near Campbelltown. The phenomenon was studied in the disciplines of sociology, psychology, and communications throughout the 1970s. The Paul is dead believers, on the other hand, never went away. They took up again with the introduction of the internet and social media, resulting in more believers. If you ask a Paul is dead believer, they will tell you that the tale went on beyond 1969. Some believe John Lennon was assassinated because he was ready to reveal the truth about Paul Billy for the first time. Others believe Paul, or should I say Billy, sent a message on his song Gratitude, which he released in 2007. He sings "Who is this now?" when played backward. Only Paul could give the correct answer to this question of who he is. Today, Paul still goes around singing as a solo act. Perhaps one day, he will speak more about who he truly is. Thank you for watching this video. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you in the next video.